Okay, so that's another Scott break. If you go through our videos, Scott calls all the time. So, no, that's not the right way to say it. He somehow calls every time I'm making some kind of video. So, it's usually a good sign because whenever we've been doing that, the company's been doing quite well. So maybe we'll start doing much better. I'll get some more pens. So, I guess, where were we? So, let's go to the nature of life. So, and where a lot of these problems are happening. So, why am I talking about the nature of resistance when we're only talking about? Just gonna make sure this is recording. Yeah. Well, we're only talking about running a company, but I think it's important if you look at the samurais or the Japanese, in their own time, one of their philosophies as a culture. I'm not saying when I talk about the Japanese or I talk about a certain culture, I'm not talking about every single human there. It's usually, one of the tricks the human mind potentially plays is, if that's the whole population of a society or Japan or a culture, when people describe a culture or a society or something, it's usually just a tiny, tiny section of that population. So, for example, if we say, what's Japan famous for? In Japan, you might say, well, Japan is very famous for quality of goods. So, if you look at that culture and you go and interview, the 120 million people living there, quality of goods, who makes those quality of goods? It's probably just a very small percentage of that culture. So, one of the tricks that I feel as though humans play is in their own brain is they're describing a society or a culture or a system, but they're only talking about like a tiny, tiny proportion of it. Yeah, so I'll try to think of better examples for it. Okay, so the nature of existence, right? So, story for everything. Based on right now. So in this given moment in time, right now, as time goes on, our understandings of everything will change. As of this given moment today, this is my understanding of things, right? And yeah, so what am I trying to get to? So we all have a path. We have a good heart. We have a good heart, we have good intentions, we have goodness within us. Good. In modern day, they call that the light. Some people call it, the God. Some people call it the positivity. Whatever it is, there's goodness inside of us, right? And there's a famous line where people have had many good intentions, but has led to many disasters. So there was the good intention that to avoid. We had so many different societies, so to avoid war between societies, we united under countries. So we're like, okay, if we go under a country, we'll have more protection. And that was a good intention. We had a good heart, we had a good theory behind it. If I live in different societies, the neighboring tribe can come over and kill me and kill everyone. So we're like, oh look, maybe it's better if we just live in massive countries. And what ended up happening was, instead of like neighboring tribes and stuff fighting with each other, entire countries started fighting with each other, and organized war ended up killing potentially 10 or 50 times more people than just neighboring societies. It's only a theory. We don't know if it's true, how bad it would have been if we just lived in these little split societies, in these little communities, and when we turned into a country, like, any country, Kazakhstan, Russia, US, because we started to organize ourselves, we did mass wars with each other. And now, literally, 100 million people have died in war in the last, 100 years, which diverts to another things like, I think we have to really delve into these things really deeply. Like, how do we manage to even, as a society, even do these brutal things to each other? You know what I mean? Like, it's really savage, like the worst things we can do to each other. We're, going to war, blowing each other up, destroying each other. It's causing devastation in people's lives. Their children are dying, but we still do it. Like, it's absolutely mind-blowing. We've got to explore these things because there's something happening inside the human brain that if we don't explore it, it might just keep happening. But so that's why, that's one of the things I like to do, which is really go deep into it. Okay, so we're back to this. You may have good intentions, you may have a good heart, you may see yourself as good. But many times we've had a great or good intention and it's led to a bad outcome. You can think about it in your own life. You've tried to, explain to your friend, hey, this behavior or this relationship that you're in is not very good. And that's led to a fight or between your friendships or whatever it is with your parents or whatever it is. So you went in with a good intention, but it led to a large problem. So good intentions don't necessarily lead to a good outcome. And the way I had it described to me recently, and I really liked the description, was, we're all, if we look at new age thinking, right? New age. It's all about positive. If we look at, I don't want to, this is not designed to hurt people's feelings, this is just an observation. So if you look at religion, right, generally you have the light, or God, or goodness, or the one, so this all-encompassing being, or however you imagine it, to be good and magical and awesome, everything about it, right? Then you keep going through these different thoughts, frameworks, Physics has, all creation is made through light and explosion. I can't think of other, but everybody is sort of on this trail of positivity. So, but like, what's the positivity in society right now? So we're like, everybody wants to have cryptocurrency at the moment. They want to move away from the dollar and move to cryptocurrency, for example. Cryptocurrency. And again, it's seen as this positive force. But I think what we're missing is the opposite. So the opposite of all of this. And, there's been many philosophers like Carl Jung, which is talking about your dark side. What's happening inside your dark side, inside your brain, right? Inside of your brain. So there's an opposite thing happening, So for there to be something that's good, the opposite has to exist. If the opposite did not exist, then the good can't be there. If there's no potential for negativity, then the positivity cannot be played out. If there is, if there is no issues in the world with money, then cryptocurrency can't exist. And, there's some famous people like Jordan Peterson and these psychologists, and they talk about, you've got this, you've got this potential negative human or being or creature, or however you say it, this psychology living inside of you, this negative one that it's all nice and happy, but push comes to shove, it can go to war. It's like a a mother bear. It's all good, but you sort of mess with its babies, it'll turn savage on you. Like anything can. So what we're saying is get this negativity or whatever you say, this dark side or under control. So if you look at all these cultures, New Age religions, whether it's Aztec religions, of the South Americans, there's a lot of talk about this devil or this negative creature that can come inside of you and control you. So you have to have an exorcism of some kind and flush that negative creature out of you. So is it a creature or is it just your psychology? However you believe it to be true, it doesn't really matter. But there seems to be this, whether it's, you've got your Celtic cultures that had all these, they used to talk about, the negative, the fallen angels, or, every culture has this, like, be careful of this negativeness, right? So, where is this negativeness, and what do we do about it? The simple answer is, we have to get it under control. I think the simple answer is, there's some kind of, you're a kid, you're 3 years old, no one's paying attention to you, you feel this sense of sadness, negativeness, anger, you start to separate from the world, you're like, oh, maybe people don't look after me, and you can't come to terms with this negative thing inside of you, and then that starts to become its own personality inside of you, this negative thought system. So as you grow up, you have to sort of try to talk to that part of you or merge with it and go, is it people that don't look after me, or are they letting me grow up so that I can be more independent? And part of that is to not always, everything I say, people are just waiting for me, right? They're letting me grow and be independent and, have my space. So get this negativeness, this dark side, this dark psychology, or whatever you call it, under control. So, so in all of these systems of thinking, is the dark side or is the God side, say that they talk about the dark side, right? Maybe people can relate to this more. In religion, they say the dark side is like a devil, or it can come inside of your body somehow, and you need to get rid of it, right? So there's two opposing forces or thoughts of system. Is the dark side something out there that comes into you? Is God something out there that can work through you? Or is the dark side something that you build up inside of yourself? So when they're talking about an exorcism, is it some kind of spirit that's gone inside of you, or is it just that you've built up this personality and then you need to start facing it, start talking to yourself, have some psychology or emotional relief from it. So we don't know. No one really knows what's going on, but what do we have control over? We don't really have control over if some kind of spirit flies into us and takes over our body like a devil. But if it is our psychology and our emotions, we can sort of do something about that. We can somehow come to terms with that. So what's the main point of all of this is, where did this question even start? It's like, okay, people are telling me information. They're like, hey Varun, we're having problems with the company, we're having problems with this person, we're having problems with this system, whatever, right? And my instantaneous reaction, so I'm acting on something that's, I've done previously, is to just do what I did in the past, If someone says that, this staff member is not doing well, then my reaction is, okay, what did I do in the past, when the staff member wasn't doing well? And really, I'm just acting how I used to. I'm not really thinking, I'm not having any original thoughts, I'm not basing it on this context. So I'm like, okay, I've got to start thinking about things a lot better. You know? Obviously I try to do these things a lot, but it really got to me like, okay, how do we think about things in just a better way, like in a more encompassing way? Like we have the good side and the dark side, and we try to merge it all together and be just better in all our thinking. You know? So if we look at the most extreme end, you know, of existence, you know, versus, you know, the most smallest, I can't think of a good example like at the moment, but I like to think about life in both ways. So yeah, so it's like the Japanese used to do, which is they used to contemplate, you know, when they wake up, they contemplate the whole of existence, the whole universe, all of creation. And then they contemplate the most tiniest thing inside of them, or the tiniest atom. So they can get a sort of the most extreme point of view. So that's the first thing they do as they wake up, right? That was a certain religion or Zen culture, I don't really know. So I like to do the same thing. So you've got to sort of look at the most extremes, like universe as a whole and then small. So if someone says to me, do you want a cup of coffee? Well, my mind's like, universe as a whole and down to the last atom. I know it sounds very extreme, but how do you fit into all of this? You know, it's a good frame of reference. Extremities, you know, the most extreme points of view. So you can use that as well, you know, in day to day. So okay, how do we make good decisions? So based on this positive, negative, you know, thing. So it's asking yourself good questions. It's all about questioning, right? So questions. Questions like, I need a better pen. I've got lip therapy, I've got brown, I've got blue. Let's go blue. So we've got questions. Questions is a form of thinking. So ask yourself, okay, how do I improve this person? How do I improve this side of the company? What have I done to cause this problem in this person? What's a better way that everyone can win out? You know, and all these thoughts sort of come into my head, right? So, and then I'm starting to think, okay, I have thoughts of, you know, I have low quality thoughts, you know, like I want to express my anger, I want to take it out on people, you know, just the first reactions, right? And then I have sort of maybe what I can categorize as high quality, a bit more thought out, right? And then I have very Zen thoughts, you know, like how do I make sure everyone is happy and we look after everyone and the world is a better place, right? So which of these thoughts are better? Really, they all work, you know what I mean? They all are just thoughts. I've labeled them as high, low, good or bad, but they're just thoughts. They're just thoughts in my brain. But they're not necessarily better than each other. They're all usable, these thoughts, you know. I guess it's just about using them where you need it to get an outcome for everyone. Yeah, so again, so what is, yeah, how does the whole nature of existence apply to what we're doing? And is it just us? But I think this is a question that everyone should be asking. I think everyone does to certain degrees. Like, everyone wakes up and goes, you know, through religion or friendships or whatever, you know, like, what is life all about? You know, what is going on? And it's to a certain degree. Some people really worry about it and they think about it all the time. Some people don't, and some people are just like, let's just go with it. Everyone's been doing it for a while. I'll just go with that. So yeah, it is to what degrees we are thinking about these things. Okay.